All right, so today we are going to be doing a PBL mini unit, or we're going to start it anyway. We're going to do session 1, and it's on a mystery disease. Mystery disease. I am going to be Dr. Mirabelli today. We are also going to have Dr. Biankovitz, or Dr. B, if that's a little confusing, because I know some of us still call her Mrs. B. And you all are going to be medical investigators. How many of you knew that was a job? How many of you were just learning? That's a job. That's pretty cool, medical investigator, okay? So we are going to look at one essential question today, and that is what or who is making everyone sick? So what we're going to do is we're going to read something called a simulation, okay? So there is something that's making, something or someone that's making a whole bunch of people sick, and we're going to do some investigating to figure out what or who is causing that sickness, okay? But the first thing that I want to do is I want to see if anyone can tell me what PBL stands for. So I want you to be thinking, has anyone heard those 3 letters together before? Okay, so several of us have heard it before. Can anybody tell me what it means or what they think it might mean? It's okay if you're wrong, right? It's okay to take a guess. Do you want to take a guess? Okay, take a guess.
Problem-based.
Excellent. So it is called it stands for problem-based learning. Where have we done problem-based learning before? Does anybody remember where you might have done it before? Yash. Elementary school, okay. Is anyone in the same boat as Yash? They did it in elementary school. Yash, what core class were you doing that in? Do you remember? Was it math or science or reading or social studies? You think it was science? Okay. How many of you went to Hickory Ridge Elementary School? I think they have a problem-based lab as one of your encores, but I think it's called Star Lab. Does that ring a bell to anybody? Sam says yes. Okay. So problem-based learning, we do a lot of that in math and in science because we're asking questions, right? We're confronted with a problem and we have to figure out the what? The solution, the answer, okay? You're not always going to be presented with all of the information. So let's go ahead and look at the board, okay? So here we have 3 categories: problem-based learning. Charity, excellent job. Thank you for taking a good guess. We're going to work in groups to solve an open-ended problem, okay? We talked about some of us have worked in PBLs before. Our learning objective today, notice that does not say students. What does it say?
Medical investigators.
Thank you. It says medical investigators. Can I get a volunteer to read the learning objective? What are we going to do? Miguel.
Medical investigators.
It's okay.
Investigators will work cooperatively.
That's okay. Cooperatively. Mm-hmm.
In their groups to discuss information from a simulation and research symptoms of certain bacterial infections in order to offer a diagnosis of what is making citizens sick.
Good. So let's break that down a little bit. What does it mean to work cooperatively? David.
Work with a team.
Good. Work with a team, right? What do we think? What can someone tell me about symptoms? William.
There are things that lead to the disease.
Okay, so maybe there are things that happen in our bodies that we can kind of tell what's wrong with us based on those symptoms, okay? What is a diagnosis? What do we think a diagnosis might be? Sam?
Like a result, like someone telling you that you have like a disease or something.
Okay, or an illness, right? Who gives us a diagnosis? Addison. Doctors give us diagnosis. Can nurses give diagnosis? Okay, good. So let's read. This is going to be something called a fuzzy challenge. Has anyone ever heard of a fuzzy challenge before? This was new. This term was new to me too, okay? A fuzzy challenge is called fuzzy because what you need to do in order to succeed may not be clear in the beginning. So we're not going to have all of the answers right away. We're going to have to do some investigating. We're going to have to do some work. These are very much like real life situations. Teams are presented with a task or a challenge that needs to be completed but aren't given all of the information to successfully complete it. The group must discover information along the way in order to be successful. So do we think that working cooperatively is going to be important? How do we work cooperatively in a group? Grayson. Everybody's participating, okay? How else do we work cooperatively, Sam?
We're not arguing.
Right, we're not arguing. Is it important to listen to everyone? Should you take turns? Is everybody's opinion valid and important? Absolutely, okay? So here is some background information on our simulation. Would anyone like to read? Change your mind. Lainey, if you'll read bullet number 1. Yasha, if you'll read bullet number 2. David, if you will read bullet number 3. And Elijah, thank you. You can read bullet number 4.
The Barrow County Fair just ended and was a well-attended event.
School was set to start just a few days later.
Many students are called out for the first day of school because they are sick and some are showing up to the emergency room.
You and your teammate are part of the Barrow County Hospital emergency room staff.
Very good. So every team, and you just can put your eyes on it, you don't have to pick it up or open it. Every team has a folder, okay? The papers in the folder are going to help you work as a team to figure out what or who is making people sick, okay? So County Fair, how many of you have been to the Cabarrus County Fair before? Has anyone been to the Cabarrus County Fair? I know Dr. Biankovitz has been there. Eliana has been there. So we see rides, right? Lots of fair food. There are also animals at the county fair. So I want you to keep in mind, a county fair happens and it's a great way to celebrate everything that's happening in your county. That says it was a well-attended event. What does that mean if something is well-attended? William? Like everyone was there, right? Most people are going to attend this event. So our community members are ill and they need our help. So we're going to work together today to figure that out. So your task is going to be split up into 3 different parts today. Okay? The first part is gathering information. So inside your folder that we will open up in a minute is a simulation handout, and it's going to give you some background information about what's happening, where people were. It's going to give you good clues as to what or who might be making them sick. So we're going to read that. We're also going to annotate. When we're annotating information, what are we looking for? So if we're going to annotate something that we're reading, Grayson, what are we looking for? Key details. Sam? Or maybe we're looking at text features to help us get ready for the read. David? Keywords. All of those are great. We're going to record our information in a chart of symptoms. We're going to look at that in just a second. After we're done reading, and we make sure that we have all of the information on the chart that we have filled out and we're good to go, you all are going to research 3 bacterial infections. Okay? There is a PowerPoint. The same PowerPoint that I'm using now is up on a Canvas page that Ms. B has provided for you. So when we get to that point, we'll tell you where to go. But you are going to work with your group to do some research on those bacterial infections to fill in your chart. And then you as a team are going to create a what? A diagnosis. You're going to decide, based on the information you gather today, because you're medical investigators, you are going to decide what is making people sick, okay? So go ahead and open up your folder.
Can I just jump in one second?
Of course.
I want you to think about something. I want you to think that there's 2 basic reasons why people go to the doctor. What's a potential reason? Why do you go to the doctor, David? If you're sick, if there's something wrong, right? What's another reason why you could go to the doctor? So just for a checkup and make sure everything's in balance. So let's go back to David. When we go to the doctor when we're sick, what happens? What's that visit like? Like, tell me what happens as you walk in. What do you hear? What do they do? Eliana?
Asking questions or prescribe something.
They're asking you questions first. Why are they asking you questions first? Sam?
To like know what's wrong and like what medications to give you.
So they're collecting what?
Information.
They're collecting data, which is another way of saying information, but in science we use the word data quite a bit. Because they're going to analyze that data to come up with a, say that again? Solution. But as a doctor, what's the name of their solution?
It begins with a D.
Diagnosis.
Ah.
Okay? So you're collecting, when we say that, we're talking about keywords from the passage and from the simulation.
Yep.
Yes, you're collecting information that could lead you to a conclusion of what is happening with these people. Okay? Doctors live in the PBL world. That's what they do every day. That's why it's in your K-12 education. Because they are presented with you, and then you have some complaint that they have to figure out
Which is
what
the
it is
problem.
and how to fix it. So these are real world skills.
Thank you, Dr. Biankovitz. 2 papers are in your folder, okay? Paper number 1 says mystery disease. This is your simulation that you are going to read with your group. We're going to read a little bit to get you started, and then I'll let you finish with your group together. We're also going to be annotating information. Your chart of symptoms looks like this. Okay, so go ahead and take a second and make sure that names for your group members are on both pieces of paper. So you should have your names on both sheets. So you can help each other spell your names. You can take turns. Thank you for letting me borrow your papers. But you want to have your names on both papers. And then I would like for you to look at the chart of symptoms paper first as a team. So that's what we're going to look at first. I want to point out some things that is going to help you continue to do the work today of the lesson after we're done reading. Okay, so you will notice at the top, listed across the chart, it gives you symptoms. So these are the things that the people of the county are experiencing as they're coming into the hospital, okay? These are the things that they're complaining about. Some of them are having stomach cramps. Some of them are experiencing diarrhea. Some have a fever, right? Some may have chills or a headache. So what you are going to be doing today as we're reading is you are going to be writing in your boxes if you hear these things from the reading, okay? Instead of making check marks, right? So instead of saying, oh, someone said stomach cramps, I'm going to put a check in the box. We're going to write yes, no, or some. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay? So if people are complaining, if everyone is complaining about stomach cramps, we're going to write a yes in that box. If the reading tells us that only one person had a fever, then we might write in the fever box some or one case only, because that's important. We don't want to just say yes or no. Because if we say yes, then that implies everybody had that. Does that make sense to everybody? Or if we say no, then that means no one had it, even if it was one person. So we want to make sure that we're specific about that, okay?
You know, in your math, the last few times you've had questions that are always, sometimes, or never, that's kind of the information. It doesn't have to be every single patient that has that.
Correct.
So it could be a sometimes. But please make sure that you're distinguishing between the always and never.
Thank you. So now your attention should be on your mystery disease paper. So we'll read a little bit. You will also notice at the bottom, and I apologize I didn't mention it, you will also notice at the bottom of your chart of symptoms, it says additional notes. So there might be something in the simulation that you think is important to include, right? And I'll highlight some of those as we're reading, but we'll read a little bit together, and then you are going to finish the reading as a team. So you should have your highlighter or a pencil ready so that you can do the annotations. So one person in the group should be holding on right now, and then maybe another person's got the chart in front of them, so if they hear something that they can record it. Does anybody have, what questions do we have before we continue? Yes?
Do we highlight the...
Yep, you can highlight, yes, you can highlight the text. Great question. What other questions do we have before we start? Does everybody know where to look? Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to start reading. So mystery disease.